Alright, I think we're going to do a little live, y'all. There's a lot of things that are coming in. There's a lot of things that you're pushing forth with. There's a lot of things that you're understanding about yourself. There's a lot of things that are, I feel like you're reinventing yourself, if that makes sense. Like you're understanding. Like, you could have made some mistakes in the past, but you're also understanding those mistakes. You're understanding those curveballs that were thrown at you, if that makes sense. You're understanding the learning phase, if that makes sense. A lot of you guys could have been going through a learning phase here. A lot of you guys are opening a new door for yourself, because God sees that you're understanding the learning phase. You're understanding what it is that you had to go through. You're understanding what's the word I'm looking for? The phases of spiritual learning, if that makes sense. You're understanding the time reacting, the times, if that makes sense. Like, you're understanding where you went wrong, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? A lot of you guys could have been feeling blocked. A lot of you guys could have been like stubborn on your spiritual phase. A lot of you guys could have been like trying to retreat, trying to hermitize yourself, but God says no more. Like, I feel like you were uncertain. You were uncertain on yourself on this path, but God is giving you the strength to move past the uncertainty. Does that make sense? Like, there's a lot that has unfolded around you. People could have tried to make you look bad. People could have tried to hurt you. But you're also understanding the true phase of your spiritual awakening that you're going through. Does that make sense? You had to understand. You had to understand what it was that you were going through. You had to understand what was built up within inside of you to heal. Does that make sense? So a lot of you guys are having to go back in and reflect on what it was that went wrong, that you had to go within inside of yourself and heal, so to speak. Does that even make sense? I hope that makes sense. So as we move forward and as we shift our consciousness and we see how people take things too far, does that make sense? Like, I feel like a lot of people are taking shit way too far around you. That's what God is saying. Like, God is saying people are taking things way too far around you. People aren't wanting you to open the door to who you are. They aren't wanting you to share your spiritual experience with others. But it's like God says no more. God says that you're going to share your experience. You're going to be the bright one. You're going to be that bright light, that bright star that everybody wanted you to wants that everybody needs to see. Because from your spiritual experience, you're learning and you're growing, and you're going to be shedding more spiritual experience on other people, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? You're going to be helping other people heal. You're going to be helping other chosen ones to release the traumatic bonds, the karmic traumatic bonds, to help you individualize yourself. You're a very strong soul. You're a very old soul, is what I'm hearing. But there are trauma bonds.
The common misconception of deploy frequency is that by shipping code to production more often.
Just pauses. There are certain current bonds that are needed to be released for you to be able to move forward, and you have to gain the strength inside of yourself to be able to let these trauma bonds go and heal yourself properly, so to speak. And you may be going through a rough time. I know you're going through a rough time, but there are certain things that you're needing to back away from, like whatever it was that you were holding on to. It was very toxic. It made you very toxic, if that makes sense. It made you do things, like, it was very mind controlling for you. It made you do certain things that you weren't able to, that you wouldn't normally do if you weren't being mind controlled, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of things that are stepping in for you. There's a lot of things that are backing away from you as well. A lot of things that you just put on the back burner and was like, look, can't deal with it no more. I'm just going to shove it back here. I'm just going to leave it on that back burner. I'm just going to leave it where it is. And I'm going to try to move forward. So it's like now God is stepping in. It's like you got to heal this back burner. Like this motherfucker's going to catch on fire and burn all the way down if you don't allow yourself to heal this part of you. Does that make sense? So God is stepping in and he is saying, look, heal, reinvent yourself, relearn yourself. And I feel like that's a place that you're at right now as a spiritual individual. They could be manipulating your energy. Like they could be throwing things out of your energy that is not true about you. They could be spreading spiritual lies about you. 557 as I say that, but God says that is changing. That is complete. It's time to harmonize and move step forward into your true path. They could be trying to transmute the energy and trying to take your destiny completely away from you. But what they don't understand is you signed a contract before you came here. You signed the blueprint of your soul was signed before you came here. So there are things that they cannot take away from you because that is what God gave you, if that makes sense. That's between you and the Most High. The Most High put you on this spiritual path and they cannot release that from you. Does that make sense? They cannot take away what is destined to be yours. So no matter how hard they try, to put blockages in your path, you're still going to grow, you're still going to shine, you're still going to outwit them, if that makes sense. So because it's kind of like it's a spiritual warfare going on, so it's a spiritual game. So you're having to outwit them and outsmart them in their own game, if that makes sense. And I feel like God is reaching down with his sword and giving you the power. It's kind of like touching your crowns, touching your highest chakra with a sword and giving you the vibration that you need to move past these certain energies so that way you can grow and you become stable within inside of yourself. So that way, 722, so that way you can move forward, if that makes sense. But you have to let go of the trauma bonding that you're holding on to. You cannot expect to move forward with a trauma bond. Does that make sense? If you won't make it through the shift if you're holding on to a trauma bond. So it's time to release that trauma bond. 7044, 7044. Take that as you will. It's time to release that trauma bond and move forward into your destined role play in the spiritual world. Does that make sense? So once you release this traumatic bond and once you create a new manifestation for yourself by releasing this traumatic bond, you're going to be more of a player role. Does that make sense? We all came here to be God's warriors. So once you release this traumatic bond and you release these traumatic pains, if that makes sense, you're gonna reinvent yourself. You're gonna rebirth yourself. You're gonna become the empress. Right now, you could just be a queen. You could just be a page. You could just be a knight. But you have to release this trauma bond to move into that empress status. Each and every single one of us want the highest paid spiritual role there is. But you cannot move forward if you don't release trauma bonds. And to do that, it's going to hurt like hell. You're going to go through certain layers of anxiety. You're going to go through certain layers of energy and spiritual manipulation. You're going to go through certain layers. 755 is what I paused that on. So you guys could be like, it's like the cycle is complete. It is changing here, if that makes sense. Like once you allow yourself to release these trauma bonds and move into what God built you for, if that makes sense, and everything's going to come together the way that it should come together. But right now, the reason why you're going through so much energy manipulation and so much, I hear powerful waste, like whatever it is around you, like it's a power waste, like they're wasting their time. That's what I feel like. I feel like it's a power waste. I feel like people around you are wasting their power. Like, not you. Like, I feel like you are doing the best you can, but I feel like people around you are wasting their power, if that makes sense. People people are trying to drag you through the mud so you won't be seen. Does that make sense? People are trying to drag you through the mud so you can't open up a new door for yourself. But God is putting a stop to that. Can't no man or no human stop what God wants, if that makes sense. Can't no man, no matter your spiritual rank, no matter if you Adam, Eve, Lilith, it don't matter. Bra, it don't matter. It don't matter who you are. Can't nobody stand in your way of what God gifted you. Does that make sense? They are wasting their power on something that God wants to elevate. God wants to move forward. God wants to shine through. Does that make sense? So, yes, you're going through a lot of energy bullshit right now. I know I'm going through all kinds of energy bullshit right now. They got the whole world thinking bad of me. But they're wasting their power. They're wasting their energy on something that God wants to build up. 1101 as I say that. So God is going to be giving you this brand new beginning. He's going to be changing your life around. He's going to be allowing you to become the star, to become the equal development that he made for you. Does that make sense? Because he made you into a development. So as we move forward and as we connect more with God and as we connect more with our higher self, he is going to be allowing us to understand why we had to go through what we had to go through, if that makes sense. Like the power within us. Does that make sense? Like the things that we had to rebuild and reinvent within us, he's going to allow us to understand it more as we move forward. Does that make sense? So, if you guys are having a hard time, you guys are going through a rough patch, just know that God got you. God's got you. I mean, they've been placing death spells on me for 3 months. I'm just saying. 3 whole months they've been placing death spells on me. And the way I look at it is, if I was the person they were manipulating me to be, if I was the person that they're sending the spiritual lies out about me, if I was that person, God would have taken me out. 1, 2, 3, 4. But God is placing me in certain order, like in certain steps, to understand that this is not my place to be. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not supposed to be here. I have to move away. So God is placing things in order for you to do the things that you need to do to play the role that he sent you to play. And you may be having to go through certain lessons, certain trials, certain different things, but know that God's on your side. I'm just saying. They are placing so many death spells on the chosen ones. They are trying to take the chosen ones out because they don't want the chosen ones to stand in their power. But if God thought you were that person, if God thought that you were the person they were manipulating you out to be, he would take you out. Does that make sense? Like, he would allow the death spells to work. But since you're not that person, God is pushing you forward. God is moving you into a new prodigal for yourself, if I should say, so to speak. He is moving you into a higher level of ascension, so that way you can outwit these people around you. Does that make sense? So God is pushing you forward. Don't worry about what it is that you're having to go through right now. It's a time. It's just a matter of time before these people are either unalived. They're going to get their karma. And I'm not wishing death upon nobody, but I'm just saying, if somebody wishes death upon you, you get death back, depending your spiritual status. But these people are going to be unalived. Karma is going to be really, really bad for them. They're going to have to watch you eat. The ones who aren't going to be unalived, because not, you either get punishment, you get unalived, or you get blessed. These punishment for these people, they're going to be really karmic. And most of these people are your family members. A lot of people were born into karmic family members to understand even your family can do this to you. Like some of you guys were born with so much love in your heart. Like, when you come into this world that's full of hate, that's full of greed, that's full of programming, if that makes sense. And you're born into these karmic family members, if that makes sense. So that way you can see even the ones around you that you love the most can hurt you the worst. So you're understanding that more as you move forward and as you ascend into understanding that, as you collect yourself into understanding that, then you can move forward into prosperity like God wants for you, if that makes sense. Like, you can move forward into the design that God built for you, if that makes sense. So you're having to understand that your family could be karmic. Your family could play the biggest role in the energy manipulation that you came here for. But remember, the biggest role in energy manipulation that is going on around you. But remember, God and you signed this contract before you came here. So the energy manipulation, I don't know what's coming through my forehead at this moment. I don't give a shit no more. They got all kinds of shit coming out my energy. But the spiritual path that God signed for you is yours no matter what. Like, they cannot stop your spiritual path. They cannot stop your growth. They can, if God does not want you dead, their death spells are not going to work. If God don't want you broke, their financial blockages aren't going to work. Does that make sense? So everything that you go through, you have to understand before you can move past it, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? So the things that what was I going to say? I was going to say something. I totally forgot what it is I was going to say. Totally forgot. So understanding that everything that you're going through, you have to understand the karmic lessons from, and you have to get the strength and the courage within inside of yourself to walk away from the karmic bullshit. Does that make sense? Because, like I said, my family's karmic. My divine masculine at this point, I feel like he's karmic. The friends that I thought were my friends, they're karmic. Everybody just wants to see the chosen ones fall. They don't want the chosen ones to stand in their spiritual presence that God gave them. And God, even the judges, so say there's two judges, or the judges that came here to judge for God. Say there's judges here. Even the judges are being judged. So that God is looking down on the judges as well, and He is judging them for what it is that they do to the other judges, to their divine counterparts, to their karmic partners. He is watching each and every single one of us and which side we take. So say you and your counterpart are judges. Say that they're judges, and say that one counterpart is judging the other one by how they live or how they act, and the other one's being judged for how they play their spiritual role. Like, you two are judging each other. And one part knows that the spiritual lessons that they're going through, or the spiritual things that they're going through, is lessons. Like, they had to learn how to understand, and they had to learn how to accept. So say that one of the spiritual counterpart is learning how to accept. Like, they have to learn how to accept. Like, that is their biggest role. Everything can't be perfect. They have to understand to accept. They have to learn how to accept imperfect things, if that makes sense. The other one, the understanding one, had to understand their spiritual role to move forward, if that makes sense. They had to understand their spiritual strength. They had to understand their the spiritual usage, if that makes sense. The other one could accept everything that comes their way. The other one doesn't accept, but understands. The other one accepts, but understands. So, accepts, but doesn't understand. So it's kind of like these spiritual counterparts that are meant to be together. Even if you don't want your spiritual counterpart no more, the ones that are meant to be together, one has to learn how to accept, and one has to learn how to understand. If the one who learns how to understand understands and lets go of the trauma bonding, and They let go of the manipulation. They let go of everything that is going on around them. Then, and they're understanding more, then God is going to set them free. If the counterpart that accepts learns how to accept, then God's going to set them free and give them peace. But if they cannot understand and they cannot accept, then God is not going to move them forward. Say the one that understands, she learns how to understand, he learns how to understand before the other one learns how to accept. That part is going to be able to move forward. That part is going to jump timelines and outgrow their spiritual counterpart. And their spiritual counterpart is going to have to sit back and watch the other counterpart grow. Does that make sense? They're going to have to sit back and watch the other counterpart grow. If the other one can't accept, then they're going to be falling back into a past karmic cycle because you're mirroring each other. So you're both having to let go of karmic trauma bonds. Does that make sense? You're both having to let go of trauma karmic cycles. What makes you feel safe. Does that make sense? So as we're letting go of these karmic patterns and these karmic bonds, we're readjusting ourselves and we're understanding the layers of ourselves more and we're accepting who we are more, if that makes sense. But if you're waiting on your divine counterpart, let me go ahead and give you a little bit of advice. Don't wait. Let them go. Heal yourself. Understand yourself. Heal yourself and love yourself. Because what you heal within inside of you is actually going to trigger things within inside of your counterpart, and it's going to make them heal, and it's going to make them understand, and it's going to make them accept. And even if they're holding on to the bad things within inside of them, allow them to do that. Allow them to do that because you are your own vessel. You're going to get judged by yourself. Does that make sense? God did split twin souls in half, but he is going to judge each part accordingly. That's kind of like why he split us in half. So you both know that you're on a mission, and if you both can't stand up together, God will move both of you in a way. He's not going to unalive either one of you, but he's going to move both of you in a way so that way you can help other people overcome certain karmic bonds, if that makes sense. So right now, the layer of the study is karmic bond, trauma karmic bond release.